Hello everybody, it's Shaderock. Welcome to the 4th volume of the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess manga. Last time we got through talking about the events leading up to Kakariko Village and King Bublin's first fight. This 4th volume covers so much content. This covers from Death Mountain all the way to Lakebed Temple. And this means we're going to be talking about the events of the Climb of Death Mountain, Goron Mine Temple, the final realm of Twilight, everything with the Zora Prince, and Lakebed. So we got a lot to talk about, so let's get started. So we start this volume off with Link and Midna starting to climb up Death Mountain. But as they're going, Luda actually shows up, stopping Link to hand over the hero's bow. And as Link tries to says thank you and to pass along a thanks to the shaman who told Luda to give Link the hero's bow, Luda decides to come along. Because Gorons are their friends, humans are their friends, that they would never attack them. As they say this, as Luda says this, they are both attacked by a Goron. And, well, this led them to actually, the Gorons actually brought them in because Luda is a friend of Darb. And this led to the revelation that Darb, the Goron we met in Volume 3, is dead. And they tried to run Link over. But Midna actually helps Link catch the Goron. This is done to remove the Iron Boots. Because Midna catches the rolling Goron instead of Link. He doesn't need the extra weight. And this actually leads to some comedic moments because the Gorons outthink Link. Link is just immensely strong. And the events play out similar to the game where we get the sumo match. Nothing different there. And Link was going to actually do this by himself, but then, yeah, he had the same realization as we do in the game, which is just, he can't do it. And Midna, with a flick of her hair in her shadow form, unseen by everyone else, throws him across the room. And they decide Link is strong enough to help deal with Darb. As we know, he touched the fused shadow and he was turned into the monster. And we actually get some imagery of the Goron sealing him up in the depths of the mountain. Luda and Link set off to go deal with the monster. Well, not just Darbus, to go to deal with the, Darb and Darbus, both who are trapped now. But as they're going, Luda actually reveals something else. That she could see the black shadow that's always behind Link. She could see Midna's shadow form, much like in Volume 3 where she could see Link's wolf form in the Realm of Twilight. I don't think this is ever explained in the manga why this happens, but it is something interesting. And then there's not really much else to talk about there outside of like the actual journey to like, there's not really much else besides that little encounter between the encounter with the boss. Which leads us to Furious. And as he awakens, he just starts screaming that he will not forgive humans. And Link begins the fight, and Luda is still shouting, even that she brought medicine to help. But all Furious can see is anger and rage and tries to kill young Luda, leading Link to take a shot with the hero's bow. The first time we actually saw him use it in this. And yeah, actually, that's it. That's the end of that fight. It is just Link shooting the gem once with the arrow. We don't kind of get, like, this fight isn't really used too much because of the fact that there really isn't much to talk about. The first encounter like with the bosses earlier, was used more for Link coming to terms of, I'm going to fight the Shadow King. And as it burns up in its own flames, and the fused shadow appears, Darb appears, and everything kind of works out. Link and Midna, of course, retrieves the second fused shadow, and Link actually gets ready to head down Death Mountain. But the Gorons point out, like, you cannot come to Death Mountain without enjoying the hot springs. And as Link is sitting there, he's just thinking to himself about the power of the fused shadows, that Midna said that it could not only stop the Shadow King, but also destroy the world. And as he's sitting there bathing in the hot springs, we see his shadow in the water of Midna laughing like a gremlin. Okay, chapter 28 might be the longest chapter we've talked about so far. There are a lot of panels from here because of the fact that this is pretty much the majority of this book. And this is the final Twilight. If you can't tell by the title, this has to deal with this is the entirety of Lake Hylia. But it does open with a bit of a focus on Midna, and talks more about her thoughts on everything with Zant, and about what the world of Twilight was to the Realm of Light, and why she did not agree with Zant. But as she's having this moment of reflection on getting the final fused shadow and being able to finally challenge Zant and go home and everything back to normal, Link comes up behind her, and under the moonlight, he sees a woman. A woman with a long black robe with pale skin. Midna turns around and just tells him, "There's no woman here. You're imagining things." Or were you fantasizing? Before floating off laughing as she does. This is quite an interesting scene where Link is seeing, Midna is playing off as a fantasy, but Link is seeing something that Midna is trying to keep hidden. And that is her truth. Link doesn't get much time to reflect on that, though, as it's off on Epona the next day, heading off to the final shrouded area of Twilight, to finally save Castletown and Lake Hylia. We actually get quite a bit of content here where it's not following Link. It is actually instead following Shad, a character we actually recently met in the games, who did not make a real appearance, I'm going to be honest, until after we retrieved the Master Sword. So it is interesting to see him here. We find out he's 3 months back due on his rent, and that he just recently got his book published, which is The Truth About the Oka. And he sets out to Telma's bar, where she has found a girl who's an amnesiac. Shad goes to talk to her to see if maybe they get some information out of her, because they don't know anything about her. They don't know if she's a runaway or what. But Telma found her and just sat her down. And when he asks her what's her name, she proceeds to actually freak out as she realizes she doesn't know her name. This is actually a much more violent, well, not violent, but like it's a much more dramatic reaction to what we saw in the game for Ilia, where she just did not remember anything. And they actually bring the doctor over, the same one who we saw walking out early in the games after, in the Realm of Twilight, if I remember correctly, where we found out that, he was coming out grumbling the fact that he doesn't know how to help Azora. Here he tells them that he can't really help her too much because of the fact he doesn't have anything for memory problems. And she asks, Telma decides while she's recovering her memory, she can help her out here. And Nilly asks her, is there really something for me to do about someone who doesn't have her memories? And Telma just simply says, for now, it's just enough for you to be here. And it actually just kind of gives her some slight joy that she can be of use. This is all going down in the realm of Twilight. And as that's going, though, Link is running across Hyrule Field for the third time as a wolf. Actually, no, this is the second time as a wolf, because he never ran across Southern Hyrule Field as a wolf. But as he's running, they see someone getting attacked by a bunch of monsters. And Midna actually didn't want to take the detour because they have a few shadow to go get. But Link simply says, some detours lead to unexpected good luck. And Midna is ignored as Link runs ahead. And they see the Zora Prince being attacked. After saving the Zora Prince, Link picks him up and actually takes him to Castle Town. And this actually leads to similar events in the game, where he picks up Ilia's scent and finds Telma's bar. And Midna actually agrees with this because of the fact she smells the fused shadow on the Zora child. As Link gets there, though, we actually get a little bit more of a couple scenes of Ilia working at the bar, dropping a couple things, and her talking to Shad, and also the fact that she still has the kitten from Volume 3. So, that's nice. We also meet another character who we actually did not meet until we set off for the Arbiter's Ground, which is Aru. We actually saw him earlier in the manga with when Zelda was, the young Princess Zelda was looking into the water basin in the garden. The only reason he showed up is also because they found the Zora child outside. And Link sees Ilia, but she is no longer going by that name. She's going by Lisa, because the only things she can remember are the letters L and I. Obviously, she's trying to remember the name Link, but she's just going by Lisa right now. And the kitten asks Link to... Well, asks this wolf, not knowing it's Link, to find Link. Because she was crying day after day for Link, but since she came here, she doesn't cry anymore. To please find Link. And this sets his resolve to go find the parasites so he could destroy them and return to human form to see her. And the events go pretty much the same as in the game. Midna hijacks one of the flying shadow beasts and they fly to Zora's domain, which has been frozen solid. Everything here kind of plays out exactly the same, except for the fact that the Zora Queen's spirit shows up before they break the ice. And we actually get to see how Zora's domain froze, which was 3 shadow beasts drop down into the water and proceed to breathe ice, freezing everything. The Zora Queen threw the prince out of the water and told him to run and get help from Zelda. But as she did this, the shadow beasts froze her, and the ice she was turned into completely broke. And she basically makes the same deal and everything as we saw in the game, including recognizing Link as the hero in beast form, and actually laments that she can no longer comfort her son. Which actually does seem to have a little bit of a visible effect on Midna. After the promise is made, the first thing they gotta do is figure out how to get the Zora free from the ice. And Midna floats up, takes a deep breath of concentration, and summons the rock from Death Mountain. But this wasn't even a thing. Like, Death Mountain the big rock did not appear in the manga prior to this. Midna literally just says, she calls it from the crater at Death Mountain. It just summons it. And the reaction's a lot more violent than it was in the game. In the game, we had the strong current at first that took us back to the base of Lake Hylia. In the manga, it just sweeps the two all the way back to the base, well, to the main part of the lake. Which then, of course, leads us to our fight with the giant Twilight parasite. And we actually learned something else about this version of Midna. She doesn't like the Twilight bugs. She hates the Twilight parasites. Which kind of gives Link a little bit of a laugh. And before the fight can actually get started, it starts flying towards them. Midna screams and smacks it, one-shotting the boss. So kind of surprising Link. But they don't really get a lot of time to sit and think on that, as the spirit of Lanayru wakes up and tells Link and Midna that if they want to find the last few shadow, they are going to need to go down to Lakebed Temple, meaning they will need the Zora's power. The next chapter actually begins shortly after Link turning human. He pretty much beelines straight for Telma's bar. And it's a similar action to what we had in the game, where she just doesn't recognize Link and is more concerned with helping the Zora Prince. Though, unlike in the game, Link has a little bit more of a reaction to her not having her memory and not recognizing him, because of the fact, well, he's trying to let her, like, you know, make sure she's safe, but he doesn't know she has amnesia, and he causes a little bit of a reaction. Telma kind of figures out what's going on immediately based on that and pulls him aside. It's like, look, you know her. She's lost her memory. Something has happened. We gotta take this a step at a time. And Aru tells them that they need to get him to the Zora Prince to an expert, and where Telma was the one who suggested that they go to Kakariko Village, Aru actually is the one who suggests going to Kakariko in this one. But as we know, the road is full of monsters, and Link volunteers to be the escort. As they set out, Telma actually brings up the fact that this must be hard for Link, that he knows her, and yet she's treating him like a complete stranger. And as Link's prepping to go, Shad tells him that Liza is an important part of the bar, part of Telma's bar. Like, it's kind of clear Shad has some feelings for her. And Link, as he's checking the saddle on Epona, tells him, "You don't need to worry. I'd give my life to protect her." And they set off. But as they're going, Link and Telma make some conversation, including asking, you know, where she's from, like asking about Liza's past. And as they're going, though, Link reveals that he's not from Ordon, and that he drifted into that village after his home was destroyed. And that used to be on the whole city disappeared, and her only response, "I've heard about a city on the desert border that disappeared in a single day," which is Link's. We do know that is Link's home. And he's concerned he's curious how she knows, and she brings up the fact that a lot of people come through her bar. And she hears a lot of things. And that it's kind of interesting that after Link pulled that sword out, all this weird shit started to happen, and Link starts to realize that there could be a connection from Midna, the Shadow Beast, him turning into a wolf, the Golden Wolf, the hero's shade pulling him out of the darkness. But Link doesn't get to think on that long, as night hits and the monsters appear. and the fight begins. As we know, these creatures do not stop spawning at night, and that is true in the manga. Link has to fight straight through the night. And he does. Hell, he goes through the entire night fighting these creatures until the daybreak, and he's tired. He's passing out. But as he's doing it, arrows hit the wagon as moblins start to attack. And he's not doing good. Link's actually makes a couple sloppy mistakes and nearly passes out. Ilya actually takes the reins of the wagon, and they switch her and Telma switch positions. She's actually driving the wagon just as well as Link's riding Epona, and starts telling her a bit about her past. She doesn't, and her only response is that she doesn't know why she could do this, and Link actually gets hit in the head by one of the moblins and falls off Epona. Epona actually gives as good as she gets, though. She actually takes on a couple of the boars. But as Link's laying there on the ground exhausted, he finds something. An energy drink that I kind of briefly mentioned back all the way from Volume 1. That he received right before all this started. And that was from the village of Ordon, which is the spring water. He downs the bottle and rushes to the rescue. But he's not fast enough to stop some of the moblins from boarding the wagon. But as they do, they comment that the old lady is not who they're looking for. They're here for the young girl. And Telma smacks him with a water bucket saying, "I've still got it where it counts." But as they do find Ilya, though, they tell her that they're going to take her back to the boss. And this actually causes her to remember the horrible things about him, and just how much she went through. But she is saved as the moblins are destroyed by Link. And this actually, they don't drag on the Ilya memory plotline. In the game, we're actually still dealing with this plotline. This is a through line for the entire game to like the third to last dungeon. But from here, she remembers who she is, and they go all the way, and they finally make it back to Kakriko village, where the prince is treated with the water, because this village has a deep connection to the Zora tribe, including the Zora king. So with the water and the treatment, the prince makes a full recovery, similar to what happens in the game, but it's actually much faster, because in the game, the Zora prince did not wake up until after we retrieved the master sword. Ilya, with her full memory back, though, instead of staying with the Zora prince like she does in the game, decides to go back to Telma's bar and keep working there. Actually, much to Telma's joy, she actually enjoys having Ilya around. And Link starts prepping for the next fight. The next chapter picks up with the kids actually just debating on what can they do to help. The fact that they're just kids, there's not really much they can do to help Link with everything he's got going on. And, well, one of them makes a decision on what they can do. Meanwhile, with the prince, the prince is led to his father's grave, where he sees his mother for the last time. And understandably, he breaks down, but he also comes to a resolve from Link. As Link dons the Zora's armor, prepared to go down to the Lakebed Temple, the Zora Prince teaches Link how to use the armor. Whenever he goes underwater, he has to raise the mask so he can breathe just as well as the Zora. They swim down through the shortcut that we found we didn't use for a while, but it was hidden behind the bomb rocks underneath by the tomb. They swim to Lake Hylia to go to Lakebed Temple, and the Zora Prince is ready to go with Link and actually willing to give his life, but Link stops him, letting him know that victory is based on his survival. And he uses the distraction from this realization and a passing Zora to swim to Lakebed Temple, leaving him behind. And Midna's kind of being Midna about it, saying, you good job sharing off that dead weight. And Link's only response is, I meant what I said. Bet also agrees that it would have been hard to protect him if he came along. But as they arrive, this is where something interesting is happening with a boss fight. We get down to Morphiel, the same boss we fought back at the end of Lakebed Temple, which also great area shot establishing the boss arena. And Morphiel is just drawn with great detail. And we just jump right to phase 2 here, where its tentacles actually will do grab Link and go actually to try to rip the mask off of Link's face. The only reason he survives is Midna quickly flies up and puts it back in place. And as they're being dragged around, they are actually saved by Queen Retalia's spirit, which allows them to catch up to Morphiel and for Link to deliver the blow to the eye, much like he's done with the other bosses. Which actually, again, much like with all the other bosses in this, actually solves everything. Like, Link one-shots this thing just like he did with the other ones. And, well, that leaves the boss defeated and the final fused shadow in their hands. And Linda points out she only needed him for collecting the fused shadows. That he's a weak human with no powers who can't even use magic. Which is an interesting thing, as I've brought up in the streams, that this is the only Link until Breath of the Wild who can't use magic. Actually, Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword, I don't believe either of those Links use magic, because all the others have the magic bar. But this one uses the most tools, as I've pointed out. And it actually just seems more like a bit of an overreaction from Midna, that she's actually trying to cover something. And Link's only response to her after this little freak out and her telling him that she's just gonna take him back to where the spirit is. Before they go, Link just simply tells her, "You never once called me by my name. When we part, say my name." With her response being, "There's no need for that. You'll forget me anyway." As they teleport out, and Link comes face to face with Zant. And that is actually how Volume 4 ends. Volume 4 ends with Link coming face to face to Zant, and we know how this plays out because of the games. And this is where in the manga, this is definitely where the turning point for Midna starts to show a little bit, especially at the end there. Like, it almost seems like she's forcing herself to be kind of upset and high and mighty at Link. And as Link said, she's never once said his name. And she hasn't. If you go through the manga, she does not call him Link. And, well, it matters. It matters a lot because of the character of Midna, which is, as I've already said, really good in the games and just done so well here in the manga. And I can't wait to talk about her arc, as we've started talking about it in the games. If anyone who's been following my streams knows that the next thing to come up is going to be the Midna's Lament section. I know I don't really have a lot to say. I'm sorry if I seem a little tired. For context for those watching on YouTube on what's going on with this video, I actually just got done my other stream of Strangers in Paradise. It has been a bit of a rough week in terms of the streams. Because I mean, we powered through. We finished Kingdom Hearts. We finished another dungeon in Twilight. We got through a lot in Elden Ring, and then today with Strangers. Oh, it's a lot of it is added on top, just to kind of warn me out. And then the fact that this is, like I said, one of the longer volumes. It's not even that it's a longer volume, it's the fact that this volume has some of the longer chapters. But it is quite interesting to see the things that this volume did, such as, like I said, dealing with the Ilya memory plot line. The fact that that is just not an actual, like, full-blown plot line. We're already done with Ilya's memory loss. The Zora Prince is already awoken, but we also get this great moment between the Zora Prince and Link, while with the Zora Prince ready to go, ready to give his life, and Link's like, no, you need to survive. And it's kind of, it almost feels like Link talking to himself a little bit, because of the fact that it is kind of similar to Link's desire after the destruction of his home. And then we also now know that Shadow Beast can swim, which is not something I needed to know, and not something I wanted to see. But I do hope you are enjoying this. Volume 5 is where things actually start to get really interesting, if I'm going to be honest, because of the fact it's where we get the Master Sword involved. And I've mentioned already that a lot of the volumes are sorted by dungeons, but if you do the math, it doesn't add up, because Twilight Princess only really has, let me think here, the 3 dungeons at the end, the 3 with a few shadows, 8 dungeons. So there, and then this just covered 2 of them. Actually, no, it doesn't have 8 dungeons, it has 9. And because I forgot the Arbiter's Grounds. But with the next chapter, we will finally be seeing the Sword of Evil's Bane. I hope you all look forward to that, and I'll see you all next week.